This is a Choppin' It Up show brought to you by the Marching Podcast. And now here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Welcome to the Choppin' It Up show, everyone. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and happy to be of service for you. Honored and still grateful to be creating and producing these podcasts from our awesome Marching Podcast studios. We hope you enjoy the show. This episode is for the month of May, the first part of May. Happy graduation to all of our graduates. We appreciate all those listening, whether through iTunes, YouTube, our blog, our website, Facebook, Twitter, or wherever you are on the interwebs. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network, if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. So this podcast is brought to you by Double Time Entertainment, The Edge One Productions, Block Band Music and Publishing, West Coast Westsiders, Marching Sport, and HBCUbands.com. Here in the off season, make sure you keep your information or keep it locked, or make sure you are following the network to keep up with all the things we have coming up. We have our National Signing Day show coming up for marching bands, which we're always happy about. This year, because we are doing it in our new studio, we are, instead of having the live broadcast with our two scholarship recipients on the phone, we're giving them each an individual podcast. So we will record the conversation with them, and we'll get all the information that you would like to know, and we'll break it up in our usual podcast, but it'll be in two parts. So this year, be looking out for the National Signing Day for 2017 with our two usual recipients, one male, one female, and you will see them, or hear from them rather, on the podcast in two different podcasts instead of one on a live broadcast. We will be releasing the first podcast next week, and then we will be releasing the next podcast in the following week. Okay, so this month of May, you make sure that you are listening and following or subscribing to the Marching Podcast Radio Network. We chop it up with Robert Lane, or AKA Bob Lane. I met Bob because he is the coordinator for the National Marching Band Championships. Football season this past year, through social media, found press release about an upcoming marching band championship that was decide a national champion for marching bands. We were all like, hey, what is this about? Because I'm sure all of you band heads were always wondering how this could actually be decided one year or not. Because we're always saying who crunk on who, or who crunk this or who crunk that. But we still sometimes want to give the validation to say, hey, we are specifically a national champion this year. Well, we actually read the article and found out that like minds think alike, and they have coordinated and put together the event for us. We said, hey, is this going to include all the bands? How is it going to be judged? We had all these questions. If you listen to the 90 Degree show, one of the 90 Degree shows from back this past year, we were actually talking about it. And I have to research and double check to make sure you guys listen to that. Well, the coordinator there, Robert Lane, listened to the podcast and had all of the answers to all of our questions. And he wanted to talk to us. He said, hey, I would love to be on the network to work out things and pub the event because this is a great thing. Everyone should be involved, and the rest is history, as they say. So we talked to him, we chopped it up with Bob Lane, and we're excited to give you that conversation here on the Marching Podcast Network. In our first segment, we find out where Bob is from. We talk about his high school experience that involved more than one high school. We find out where Bob decides to go to college. He also tells us a story about a conversation that he has with Roderick Little, one of the band directors there at my alma mater, Jackson State University. And then Bob tells us his most memorable experience while marching there in college. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com. We hope you enjoy the show. You're now here with the Marching Podcast, and we have a great guest like we always do, but really excited to talk today to Mr. Bob Lane. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing well. So really excited to have you on, and I wanted to talk to you and chop it up with you about the event we're all excited for, and that's the National Marching Band Championships. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we're so excited here in South Carolina about it.
that's nice. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Bob, where are you from?
I am from a little town called Chesterfield, South Carolina, which is about 50 miles south of Charlotte.
Oh, wow. That's so.
Yeah.
Is that like Rock Hill? Is that the other city?
It's a little bit. I'm heading more towards the beach area. It's a little bit east of Rock Hill. It's probably 70 miles east of Rock Hill.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's funny because there's a Chesterfield in St. Louis. So that
in Missouri,
in
okay.
Missouri, yeah. And then my cousin actually worked at Winthrop. Not Winthrop.
Oh yeah,
Charlotte, but
yeah.
Winthrop there,
well, that's near there. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So he worked there for a while, and I remember going down there to visit him. So that's really cool. That's outstanding. Where did you? I always ask folks their first musical experience, but what was your first instrument?
My first instrument?
Yeah, like what was the first instrument that
you
played?
Well, I started out on baritone in an elementary school band in the fourth grade in that little town of Chesterfield, South Carolina. And the band director there started the band program from scratch, where we didn't even have a marching band in our town for our high school. And it was really interesting that I began with the very beginnings of a band program and just automatically fell in love with it. The director was a mentor for me. His name was Mr. Barry Garrison. He made a great little band for our town there that ended up many years were in the top 10 in the state. So that's where the love affair began.
Okay. All right. That's outstanding. Yeah. Now, I always also ask some folks because it depends on like their musical background. You were in South Carolina already, so I guess before fourth grade, had you seen a lot of marching bands and all that stuff like that?
Well, yeah, I was familiar with like the bands at South Carolina and Clemson and South Carolina State. In our state, South Carolina State, I'm sure you're familiar with them. The Marching 101 has always been the kind of go-to band for everyone. They were always the most entertaining and got the most press. You know, whenever played one of the larger schools, everyone had to be at that game in order to see the Marching 101. So I was able to see them at a very early age, and the university bands in the area. And so, but yeah, at the same time, though, I was so heavily involved with my school and my high school that I was still predominantly in those areas, I'd say.
I always like to joke with South Carolina State. They've done some things like in the last couple of years, and I have a really funny story. I was at Johnson C. Smith, and you know, it's a really small school, and it does not have a band, and you would not think in all of band analysis, South Carolina State would lose any type of competition to Johnson C. Smith. Well, basically, they slept on us, and they basically they took the week off.
Okay.
They took the week off, and it's basically what it looked like. They just laughed when they saw our name, and that was like the most intense week of like my band career because I transferred to Jackson State, but my first
school I went to in '96 was Johnson C. Smith, and that was the greatest week of practice probably in the program history. You know what I mean? And
Very cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
and we went in there.
So
and
you
blew
guys
'em
beat
out.
SC
Oh my,
State that
yeah,
week?
it was a massacre, and it's funny.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Man.
And that that's what makes marching band so great is that you can get so keyed up about especially one opponent when it's that individual battle going on. That's so exciting and so thrilling. I'm glad you had that experience.
Of course, they laugh about it now, but I mean, it's the fact that it happened, and they don't really like it.
Yeah.
It's great. Okay, so South Carolina, that's cool. My family's from Charlotte. My mother's from Charlotte,
Yeah.
so really familiar with the area. So
Right.
now you're in fourth grade, and you decided to pick up the baritone. Did you go to then Chesterfield High School?
I did. My father was in school business, so when he would get a promotion, we would actually have to move normally. And so I was at Chesterfield High School. That's where I began my high school marching career, and then later moved up to Woodruff High School, which is near Spartanburg in Greenville, in that area.
Wow.
Ended up being the drum major at that high school before going on to the University of South Carolina, the mighty sound of the Southeast there.
When did you transfer? Like 10th grade or?
10th grade, yeah, and it was that was very awkward because I was actually the president of my sophomore class in high school, and then when I transferred, all of a sudden I was nobody. No one knew me,
Right.
but I think that benefited me as far as my social skills and acclimating me to meeting new people quickly, and so that probably in the long run it was a good thing, but I certainly didn't see it at the time.
Right. So did you guys have any like fierce battles with any other high schools, or how was the interaction there at the two? Cause I was about to say at your school, but you had a couple of experiences. So
we did when we were in high school. Honestly, the band that I transferred to was not as good as the one that I came from.
Oh, okay.
So it was a little bit of a letdown for me in the case that I knew when we were in competition, we wouldn't place as high as the previous band had. But we did have some rivalries nearby. One of them was, I think, James F. Burns, which they always filled an incredible band. And they're out of between Greenville and Spartanburg High School. They're called the Rebel Regiment or something like that. And they're still, I think they were state champion this year in the largest school division. So we had a little bit of a rivalry, but it was not, we were not really nearly as good as them. But did have some high school rivalries, I would say, but more in schools that were in our division, I would think, because we were a smaller school and they were a large one.
So how did you become drum major? Because, I mean, that's a tough thing. I mean, it's like a glamour position, but it's tough being a drum major.
Yeah, it is. I came in there, like you said, between my sophomore and junior years in high school, and I was totally into band because the school I had come from, Chesterfield, was so good. One of my neighbors was going to be the drum major that year at Woodruff High School. I had been to drum major camp my sophomore year and was well on my way to doing that at my previous school when I transferred. And so she wasn't able to go to camp that year, so I trained her to be the drum major my junior year, and I was in the band. And then at the end of that year, she said, "You really need to be the drum major. You're the better one," or whatever. And we'd become like best friends by that time. So there wasn't any kind of hard feelings at all. Her name was Jerry Harrell. She's Jerry Stroud now, and she just took it all in so well, and just a great girl and great friend. And she just kind of stepped aside and said, "You need to do this." And the band director agreed. So my senior year, I became drum major.
Now, were you the only drum major, or did you guys have more than one drum major?
Only one. It was back in those days. Schools usually only had one, especially on the high school level. Yeah.
Okay.
But that was ancient history. So it was a long time ago.
So if you don't mind me asking, what year did you finish Woodruff High School?
I finished Woodruff High School in 1979.
Oh,
so I entered that fall. I entered the University of South Carolina in Columbia.
University of South Carolina. And what's the name of the band there?
The band at the University of South Carolina, at that time, it was simply the Carolina Band, but now it's called the Mighty Sound of the Southeast.
Okay.
And they're really, really good these days. They march about 400 strong and extremely tight. They're just a good band.
Yeah, that's the part that I was not aware of until I got into college. I didn't know that the majority colleges, your predominant colleges, had so many people in their band, man. I was blown away by that.
I think when I was in it, there were 325 or something like that.
Wow. That is,
yeah,
that's awesome. I like to hear that. I didn't know it was so big. Florida A&M, as you know, is considered to be, oh my God, there's so many people, and they're just 300, or they'll have maybe 300 plus or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. It's not the number though. It's the quality.
Right. Definitely.
We all know that, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. It's just funny to talk numbers. University of Missouri or any of those schools. I know that Michigan State has about 300 or something, and I know Gregory Drain. He's at Penn State, and I remember he said he had about 75 trumpets. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think Penn State's right around 320 or something like that. Oh. One of our committee members for the festival is a graduate of Penn State, and he works at University of Texas. Okay. He's been really helpful in getting those guys on board. We're hopeful they may come next year to this festival, so that would be really cool if they could.
What made you decide to go and march at University of South Carolina?
I had such a good experience at Chesterfield High School. And I had gone to, when I was a junior in high school, I had actually gone to a band camp at the University of South Carolina. Okay. At the time, the director there, I think his name was Dr. James Copenhaver. He's a really, really great guy. So I liked the people there when I visited for those band camps a couple of summers. And it was a school that was close by that had a very strong marching band, and I said, I would like to be a part of this. So, and my family was how your families are sports fans, and we had always been Gamecock fans, and my father was a graduate of that school, so it's just kind of natural that that's where I would go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my dad went to Jackson State, so so it's kind of how it happened. I was not going to go to Jackson State. You know what I mean? There's
really?
No way. Oh man, there was no way in the world I was going to Jackson State, and I was going to make my own legacy somewhere else. And so that's how I ended up at Johnson C. Smith. But I always tell a funny story. We had a kind of a run-in with Dudley High School, and they just had they just kind of just crunk on us, man, basically. And
I've got to tell you, Joe, I got to tell you something before. Let me interject really quick. This is really funny. When I was talking to Roderick at Jackson State just a couple months ago, when we were first starting to have our initial conversations about them maybe coming here, I was telling him about a New Year's Eve experience I had when a family approached me downtown Columbia, and we started talking about the possibility of the National Collegiate Marching Band Championships. And I said, Roderick, people were so excited there. I said, one of the little girls came and asked me, were the dancing dolls going to be there? And of course, the dancers at Jackson State are not the dancing dolls. They're the prancing chase set. Right. So I really stuck my foot in my mouth on that one. And he said, well, that's great, but that's not us. So anyway, I thought I'd just interject. But anyway, that was kind of a funny story regarding this festival. So I thought I'd throw out there.
Yeah, I was wondering how he took it. Like, I was like,
he was a real champ about it. He was very diplomatic.
Nice.
And then I said, I'm so sorry. And I realized that the next morning when I had already posted something about it on Facebook, because you remember that documentary that was on television about the marching bands, and I think it was talking about the dancing dolls. That's where I got them confused somehow, but those are both two outstanding dancing groups, but they're from rival schools, and that was a big mistake on my part.
Yeah, that's the S. And it's funny because it was them, too. Like,
absolutely.
But that's cool.
Yeah.
But that's cool, like you said, he was cool.
Especially when they're both so good,
Right. You decided to go to University of South Carolina. What was your best experience there marching, or what was your most memorable experience?
I would say, yeah, it definitely was. We went to a game in our very first game, the very first game my freshman year. We played the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill, full university, gorgeous place, but they didn't have much of a marching band at that time. And we had a really strong band. And I remember the crowd reaction during and all through and after our show. We received about a 4-minute standing ovation from the crowd at North Carolina after our performance, and that was that would have been fall of 1979. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget how that felt, because it felt like a competition win, and from what I had experienced in high school. And it was just really, really cool. That had to be it. That had to be the highlight.
Nice. Did you guys go to every game? Like, I know you played for the home games, but did you also go on the road and play when?
Yeah, we would have 5 away games in college, and we normally would go to 2 or 3 of those games. We always went to, if we played the University of Georgia in Athens, we always went there. If we played at Clemson, we always went there because that was a big rival. Right. And we would normally go to another game in North Carolina somewhere, where that'd be Duke or North Carolina State or University of North Carolina. So we normally went to 2 or 3 pretty big away games a year.
And that was I guess you picked them based on, like, if it was an exciting football game or exciting band competition, or both, or...
Both, yeah. We at that time we really had, and they still do have, a fairly strong rivalry with South Carolina and Georgia. Have a pretty good band rivalry, and always have. So we would always go to that game, but that was, I think, through the athletic department. They're the ones that decided to which places we would go, but we always went to Georgia anyway. So that rivalry was going to happen every year. That we kind of lucked out on that one, but it was more, I think the decisions were probably made more on the football end of it, as far as who the bigger rivals were and the closest games that we could get to and that type thing. I wish there had been more thought put into, well, their band's going to be really good, but unfortunately that probably was not the case at that time.
Band directors, have you ever found yourselves in this situation? Showtime is quickly approaching. Your budget is quickly disappearing. Your music choices are narrowing. The equipment condition is wearing and your stress level is mounting. Stop what you're doing and contact Block Band Music and find out how we've got you. Check www.blockbandmusic.com, providing music, equipment, gear, and accessories to show style, core style, and traditional bands worldwide.
Hello, this is Christine Mayo-Katzman, CEO and publisher of Halftime Magazine, and you are chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
We're back, everyone. What I remember most about the first segment is that I had a cold. Like, when I went back over to edit the interview, I forgot I was a little bit under the weather. So talking to him, I forgot, I was just listening to how funny I sound. Also talking about how big the marching bands were at predominantly white institutions. I did not know that South Carolina and Georgia had a really big band rivalry, which is good to know. And how the one girl in his high school career said that she would really let him be drum major. And I'm sure that was tough for her. Some guys or girls or whatever come in from other schools and steal your shine, or if they come in and they're better than you, she was bigger than her own thing, or, she could have maybe said, oh, this dude, or, it could have started a whole bunch of drama, but really sounded like she was very supportive of him, and that's actually really good to know, so shout out to her. But those are the things that stood out to me most listening back in the first segment of the interview. In the second segment, we find out what majors in college. He tells us when he graduated from college and what he started to do after graduation. We find out how he got into coordinating the national championships for marching band, lays out the format for the competition. He lets us know the HBCUs and the major PWIs that are planning to compete in this year's competition. And then we get into the judging, which bleeds over into the third segment. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com.
What did you aspire to major in?
In retrospect, I should have been a band director. That was my passion and my love. As a young person, you see dollar signs always, or I did anyway. Been working in restaurants and hospitality on and off throughout college. I majored in public relations and advertising. My grand dream was to start my own restaurant chain and do my own advertising for it. So it had nothing to do with band. But at the same time, looking back, I wish I had chosen music. Father always just said, do what you love, the money will follow. If you just do what you love and you're really passionate about it, then you'll make your money in that. And so, but I did not follow that route. I should have. So that's the route I went.
Okay. When did you finish University of South Carolina?
I was on the 5-year plan. I finished in 1984.
After you got out, what was your first job?
I was a restaurant manager in Columbia, South Carolina, and did that for probably 8 or 10 years, and then moved to Atlanta, and I worked with the Atlanta Hilton for about 12 years.
What did you play there at University of South Carolina?
Oh, mellophone. I was a mellophone player.
Nice.
I ended up being able to play mellophone, trumpet, baritone, and French horn. So I had 4 instruments, and I also played piano. So there was quite a bit of instruments I learned how to play. I would say my favorite was the French horn. I think it just has a beautiful mellow sound, and that's probably my favorite instrument is the French horn in concert season and the mellophone in marching season.
So did you put it down after you graduated?
I did. Yeah, I absolutely did. I guess there could have been opportunity for drum corps and that type thing, but I never pursued that.
Okay, so you're a restaurant manager, and then you moved to Atlanta, you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did.
Are you still a restaurant manager there?
No, at that time I went into a marketing position with the Hilton in Atlanta. So I was in the hospitality industry, but more than a marketing role.
Okay. So now,
marketing sales role.
So yeah, I'm trying to just follow. You got all the, like you say, your passion deep down was the band.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Seems like you keep excelling in your career. When did it get to the point where you got to be a part of creating the championships? So
putting this together?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was I had a buddy in South Carolina that had made a lot of money in the catering business, and he knew a lot of people that were in political power in Columbia. I did not have those contacts. Although I'd been in the business world, I didn't know the people that could help you find the right people to get your hospitality tax dollars, and I had no idea about any of that type thing. So anyway, this guy just became a friend of mine, and we were talking over lunch one day, and this was about 2 years ago. And I said, David, I've had this idea for a lot of years, and I think it would be very successful if the right people could get a hold of it. And I think it could be something just absolutely wonderful for Columbia. He said, what are you talking about? There are championships for every sport in the world, and even cheerleading. I said, but there are no college marching band students have never had an opportunity to compete for a title or win a trophy. I said, I think that we could make a competition that people would just adore, and would come from all over the United States for, because marching band people love their marching bands. It's apparent from high school competitions how much they follow them. And I think it could be just a really fun event. We could bring some tourism dollars to the city and give the students that have worked so hard for so many years something that they deserve for so long. And he got really quiet, and he leaned in. And he said, Bob, say that again. And so I just told him briefly, I said, college, in a nutshell, college marching bands have never had the opportunity to win a championship. And he said, my friend, you're going to be rich. And I said, what? So anyway, I said, well, that's not the idea. I said, I just want to do something good and be involved in something productive, give a product to something that has been deserved for a long time. And he said, I think I know how we can get this started. He introduced me to the mayor of Columbia, Steve Benjamin, who's been fantastic throughout this whole process. Also to a lady named Libby Gober, who was the assistant to city council. And she knew the people to apply for hospitality tax dollars through. So we were able to make our little presentations through them, and their mouths just dropped wide open and said, we're going to do it. We're going to make this a national championship, and Columbia is going to be the home of it. That's how the ball started rolling, and it's just, my goodness, it's just like gangbusters now. We're getting national publicity like you guys, and we're so grateful for it. People are just getting so excited, and I've even marching band students from colleges all over the country email me, and all they say is, thank you, Mr. Lane, for the competition. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so I know that it's going to be something really great. I'm glad we're able to get this thing delivered.
I've always myself talked about it. How could we have a competition where people are just saying, oh, they crunk on you, or this band was better? It was some type of scoring or a competition. Most folks I talked to, they said that was exciting, but then other people were saying, oh, well, that's not the job of the college or the band there. It's to support the football team. So
we definitely had our naysayers, but the positives were much more in the higher percentage.
So you were able to take the bands out of the football arena, if you will, and just put them on their own stage, right? Which is What's really
we have nothing. Our festival has nothing against football teams, and we're not out to create something and take football out of the arena, because that's not going to happen. That's a good thing. We want people to still realize that this is the college mission. The college mission comes first. And one thing we've integrated into our competition is that the first 3 minutes that every band is on the field, they will do a non-judged portion of their spirit show for something having to do with their school spirit. We really want to keep the element of college marching alive in this festival. We don't want to lose sight of what we are.
That's cool.
So that'll be something that is prevalent from day one and will always be in the national competition.
That's actually nice that you still want to make sure that you still are incorporating that this is still a college event. People will still feel like, oh, I'm going to see my school, and then it's you don't turn it into like a DCI or a professional type of thing.
No,
AAU.
No, it will never be that.
Right.
Yeah, it will never be that.
Awesome.
It will always be the college marching experience, and that's what we're going for, is to promote colleges, hopefully gain more funding for so many colleges that are financially strapped in their music departments. And, if we can get television on board soon, then that will help that area so much. So our goal is to promote the marching arts in colleges and to help them acquire better funding, get them more notoriety and, just appreciate them for what they've done and the hard work they perform. That's what we're about.
Well, that's great. That's great. I read an article, and it kind of, I guess, explained a little bit essentially what's going to happen. So could you tell us exactly how it would be judged?
There will be 3 competitions for the National Competition Championship. And this is funny. Roderick over at Jackson State, your alma mater there, coined a term for me, the PWIs, which you're familiar with that, but I wasn't until about a month ago, which is primarily white institutions. I thought that was rather funny as compared to the HBCUs.
Some people say PWC for predominantly white colleges.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Okay, so that makes sense too.
Both. Yeah, people use both. It's interchangeable.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 3 different categories for competition championship. The first one will be an open category that will happen on Friday, and that will be for colleges under 200 wins. And anybody can be in that open category. So that's just colleges that march less than 200 instruments. So they can actually have 250 on the field if they have 25 dancers and 25 flags and drum majors, as long as they have under 200 instruments on the field.
Okay.
So that'll be the first category that we have a competition for. That'll be Friday evening, December 1st. Before that, we'll have 2 or 3 bands marching exhibitions, because some of the college bands that are coming do not want to compete. They want to be a part of the show, but they don't want to be competing. So that's fine. People can compete or come in here in exhibition. We'll have the exhibition bands first that evening. Then we'll have 5 bands that'll compete for the very first national championship for the smaller schools that night. We will name that winner on the field that evening, and then the next morning is actually the South Carolina Holiday Parade, which now will be the South Carolina Holiday and National Marching Championship Parade. We're going to integrate our Christmas parade into this and make one gigantic parade that is going to pretty much raise the Columbia Christmas Parade to like the Macy's of the South. It's going to be gigantic. The city is thrilled about that we can combine the parades, the festival, and the parade to elevate the South Carolina Holiday Parade. So after that'll be at 10 in the morning on Saturday. I'll tell you more about the judging in a minute. And then on Saturday afternoon at 3 or 4, we'll start again with 3 or 4 exhibition bands. And then we'll have the show band category that evening, which will be primarily the HBCUs, but not limited to the HBCUs. There are a couple of PWCs that identify themselves as show band, and one really good one is the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Now, I've invited them, but I've not gotten a response from them at all. So, in other words, my position is I don't want anything that could be construed as segregated.
Awesome.
So anybody can enter the show band competition if they feel like they're a show band. And, you know, everyone knows that predominantly the show bands are the HBCUs. So that evening, we're going to have at least 5 bands that will compete for the first show band national title. And so far, the bands that South Carolina State is coming to this festival, but they will be our host band. They will not be competing this year. I believe that one of their directors is going to be one of the judges on the show band category. So that's how they'll be involved, just for your information. For the most part, it was invitation only this year, and it was by reputation and the number of years of excellence. Bands that we originally have invited, we invited all the HBCUs, but the ones that we have acceptance from so far are Tennessee State, Alabama State. Jackson State is thinking about it, but we don't have a firm yes yet. So, and I believe North Carolina A&T said yes via Twitter the other day. So we think that they're coming, as did Southern. So, but we don't have an official email confirmation from them yet, and I'll send both of those schools an official invitation probably in the next week or 2. But they have both indicated that they would like to participate. So as of now, we've got 4 really big bands, and any one of those would be a great national champion. One thing about this festival is we will never name a 5th place or 6th place band. We're only going to name the runner-up and the champion, because we don't want anyone to ever come in last here. So I don't know what you think about that, but that's the way we're going to do it. The next afternoon on Sunday, there'll be a huge fireworks display that evening, and all the college students for the festival will be able to trade T-shirts and caps and get to know each other. There'll be a big party at the Spirit Communication Stadium that evening for them, where we can all just stay at the stadium and have fun. And then the next afternoon will be the large core-style bands, and those will be over 200 members, open category, and that'll be the last championship that will be awarded. And then the festival will conclude. On Sunday afternoon, in that open large category, so far I think we have Jacksonville State, the University of North Alabama. I believe Florida International may compete in that category, although I'm not positive about that yet. There would be one of those bands on that day. We have invited a couple bands that we're waiting to hear from. Most of the bands that we're getting our yeses from this year are primarily Southeastern. We invited some of the Midwestern bands that we thought might be more apt to coming. Actually, this is probably bad to say, but some of the teams that have really bad football teams, but they have great bands, were kind of on our target list this year because we thought this would be something that they probably would not be going to a bowl game, but it would be something to reward their students with at the end of the year. So that was the idea behind that, and we thought they would be more likely to come. That's where we are right now. There's 3 that are confirmed, and those 3 that I told you on the Friday afternoon, and then we're waiting on word from like 4 more. Primarily the judging, that's what you were asking for about originally, and it's Olympic judging. I don't know if your listeners are not familiar with that. That's where all the judges judge the entire view of the band. We don't have like a judge for color guard, a judge for dancers, judge for winds, a judge for brass. All the judges will judge everything. In the show band category, we will have 5 or 6 judges in that, and there'll be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be 6. 5 of those will have exclusively HBCU backgrounds, 5 of those people, and the last judge is Joe Allison, who is our chief judge for the festival. He is actually well-versed in HBCU bands, but has never worked at one. So, but he's our chief judge for the festival, so he'll be judging that category as well.
From photo shoots to graduation pictures, from probates to dance footage, from pageants to yard shows, there's only one team you can count on, the Edge One Productions. Visit theedge1.com and trust me, you won't be disappointed.
Hello, my name is Kellen J. Christian. I am the director of bands at Oak Haven High School in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm also the assistant director of Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama. I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a 2007 graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. M4, baby, swag, stand up. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
Hello, everyone. We're back. What I remember most about the second segment is how Bill's contacts basically put him in the driver's seat. He had one contact, and he was able to get to the mayor and people on the city council. I thought that was very impressive how he was able to put it together, and he put it together very fast. He brought up the HBCUs that will be there, as well as the major universities. I remember him saying that he never heard of the acronym before, PWI or PWC, in reference to the major schools, so I thought that was kind of funny. Didn't know about University of Lafayette, and did not know that they will recognize themselves as a show band. So if anyone knows about Lafayette, definitely school me about that, but it's a band that I'm going to be looking for now. He said that Tennessee State, Bama State, Jackson State, possibly North Carolina A&T, and Southern, major programs anyway, and would be really good national champions. But also he said that South Carolina State will also be there, not to compete, but to be there as part of the event. And then on the major side, Jacksonville State. I believe I've seen Jacksonville State somewhere before, and they have a JSU logo or something like that where you see JSU, you know what I mean? Also, University of North Alabama and Florida International. I hear Florida International is on the come up. They have so many students there down there. I heard that it's in 60,000 students or something like that at their school. So they're on the come up. And then remember, they got Isaiah Thomas there to come coach their basketball team. I mean, that's wow. So they definitely got something going on down there at Florida International. So that would be exciting, those collection of bands, definitely to go and support the event. he wraps up talking about the judging, and this is what we were intrigued about. But it looks like it's that who's who of band directors that will be judging the event. And I use the term consortium, just being a geography professor. Bob was telling me that the judge cards will not be posted, and there's not going to be live scoring. So it's like originality or precision. This judge gave him a 6, blah, blah, blah. Like, he said that information will not be posted, but it will be up to those judges, that who's who of judges, to decide on who is going to be the national champion. And these are trusted professionals, all people, accepted peers in the field. So similar to our directors that we talk to that judge and adjudicate, as you will, a lot of the high school competition. Moving on to the third segment, we dive more into the details of the judging in the event and about bands that will perform as part of the event and not necessarily be competing in the event. And we recap the format and order of events for the weekend. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com.
It's going to be Friday through Sunday? Is it?
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay.
December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd.
Okay, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. And then on Friday night, there is the under 200 wins competition. And when you say wins,
Open category.
right? And when you say wins, you're talking about like brass and woodwinds. You're not talking about percussion.
Total instruments.
Total instruments.
Brass, woodwind, and percussion. They can't have more than 200 instruments on the field.
Okay.
They have to have up to 199.
Okay, right.
They can have as many alternate unit people as they want, but they can have up to 199 to be in that category.
Okay, and then that's Friday night, and then you say that you'll give the winner for that Friday evening.
That night. Each night a different winner will be announced.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Are the judges the same for each competition?
There's going to be an adjudication faculty, and that's another good thing about this festival, Joe, is that our judges look like who's who from like marching band directors, staffs all over the country in colleges. And so that is another thing that's going to give us immediate validation as the official national championship. And that it kind of is what brought the band directors more on board when they saw who was judging it. Because originally, there was some pushback, especially from the band directors that had been at their schools 30 and 40 years and were not used to any change. So we did have a little bit of pushback at first, but once we announced that those people were going to be doing the judging for the most part, then it became much easier.
And so this is essentially like a consortium of band directors. That consortium, if you will, is a list of a lot of really good band directors.
From all over the country. I think there's 2 from your state, from California. There's 14 of them so far, and they will comprise the staff that will make up the judging panels for the first 2 years of the festival. There was like some names you might be familiar with, or John Robinson is a SE State band director who likely will judge the show band category. One of your associates, who will go nameless, has been asked to judge out from California. So she may be on our staff as well. Also, Dr. Alfred Watkins, who's pretty much a FAMU legend. He's received every major award for marching band directors in the United States. He will be one of our judges, and he'll judge all 3 categories. So it'll be a diverse panel of judges for all 3 categories.
This is really, really great. So essentially, when we were talking and you broke down, you talked to the mayor and things started to roll. You must have a lot of people working and helping, because you are essentially, I guess, you knew the people to talk to, so you just pretty much gave them a call. How long has put all this together?
How long has it taken? Yeah. We started last January, in January of 2016, and the target date originally was January of 2018, this coming January. What we were going to do is we were going to have it right after the national championship football game, but before the Super Bowl and before the HBOB in Atlanta. One thing we wanted to do, we want to make sure we had an opportune time, but our committee was very, very aware of the cultural significance of behind the Battle of the Bands and how important that was and how that kind of paved the way for us. And so our goal was that we would never interfere with that event, that would go on as it was. And we may have even tried. I don't know if they're going to exist next year. I've heard there's some things going on with that, and I'm not aware of what that is. Our goal would be to partner with those guys. And originally, some of our committees said, well, why don't we just, after they pick the 8 bands that they want to come to Atlanta, let them pick who should compete here. And I said, well, that would be fine. I said, but we want to maintain at the same time, while we respect their competition, we've got to maintain the integrity of ours. And so we've got to make sure, though, that we have the cream of the crop. At the same time, not interfere with that event, because we think that event's very important. The reason we didn't stay in January is after we started making inquiries from the marching band directors, all the directors saying, we want to do this, but we can't do it in January, he said, because our students get their stipends and they get their class credit in the fall. They don't get it in the spring normally. Some do, I think, but for the most part, that's when they get their class credits, is for being a marching band in the fall. So we went to championship weekend because we knew that would conflict with some bands that had teams in their conference championship games. But we're going to offer an opt-out to those bands whereby if they were invited here and they said, yeah, we'd like to come, then if their football team is still in the running for their conference championship as of November the 1st, then they can just say, we're sorry, we can't do it because our team might still be in the championship. So we're offering that now.
Okay.
So
yeah, that was actually one of my questions.
But we moved back to December because of that.
Yeah, that was actually one of my questions, because
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if conference championships would be in the way, or it would be around that time.
They could potentially be, but that's just an element of the game we're just going to have to deal with and work around it. I'm sure every year we'll probably lose 2 or 3 bands at the end, but we're going to get enough bands in it that won't matter. I mean, I'm hoping 17 bands this year. That's our target number. We're already at 14. And even if we go to 22 this year, that's fine. But I want normally between 20 and 25 bands at this festival every year.
Friday,
200 wins open. That means anybody can compete that wants to compete in that category until we fill it up. And this year, somebody wants to compete, I'm not going to deny them the opportunity to compete.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that this year, we may have a more formal process of selecting who competes for a national championship in future years. But for this year, anybody who wants to needs to be able to. That's my opinion.
Well, it made me think of a lot of HBCUs talk about this when they have an opportunity to go and play for their conference championship, or if sometimes they say, okay, no, we're going to elect and go to play for the NCAA playoffs. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's kind of similar. There's so many parallels with sports here, which is really exciting. A lot of schools make that decision already, so it's just an element of, like you say, of band. I don't think that's nothing. I don't think that's really anything to be worried about. So I want to say
no,
that,
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think we'll work with that back pretty well.
Okay, so then on Saturday, you say the parade happens?
Mm-hmm. That'll be 10 a.m., 10 in the morning, downtown Columbia.
Will any of the bands participate in that parade? Or
Oh, yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah, they will. The bands that come to Columbia for this festival are not going to be required to, but we highly encourage them to be in that parade, of course, because a lot of people are going to be seeing that parade, and it's a televised parade, too. So a lot of people will see it, and the announcers will say, okay, these bands in the parade are going to be at the National Marching Festival just down the street at Spirit Communications.
Exactly.
So after this is over, you guys go grab up the tickets and watch this great event tonight. That'll be a part of the show. I would imagine we'll have about half of them there for the festival that will be in the parade as well.
Yeah, I think it would be good if they like you said, like you highly recommend they do it. I think it would be good for them because it'll also give a little taste, like you said, of what's coming.
Here's something else that you'll find I think is really cool about our festival. You know how at a lot of competitions, bands just walk onto the field?
Right.
No band will ever walk onto our field. They will march onto the field in parade formation. And the reason for that is that should there be a tie for the national championship, their entrance into the stadium will be the tiebreaker.
Wow.
So the thing is, everybody is going to have to be on point at every minute.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
so.
Really
I think
good.
that's really cool. I thought of that one myself. Yeah, how'd I do that?
Nice. So then we got the parade Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, I guess afternoon or Saturday evening, that will be the HPC or show band competition?
Show band competition, yeah.
Okay.
There'll be some exhibition bands sprinkled in there too, but then the show bands will start. Finish all those performances, then at least five of those bands, it may be 5 or maybe 8, I'm not sure how many it'll be yet. It'll be anybody who wants to do it this year for sure. But they'll come back onto the field for the announcement of the winners.
And then that Saturday night is the meet and greet. Is that Sunday morning?
That's gonna be after. That's either that may be Friday night after the smaller bands, because that's when most of the bands are going to be coming out on Friday.
Okay.
So that'll either be Friday night or Saturday night, but at this point that's scheduled for Saturday night. And because that's when we think we'll have our largest crowd of the weekend, just for the show bands, and we'll add in Sunday afternoon. So, and we won't do that to be a real fun event for the students.
Right, because I immediately thought of KK Psi and Tau Beta Sigma. They're all over the place. So I immediately thought of them. And, of course, other fraternities and sororities, a lot of, like you said, keeping the band, or I'm sorry, keeping the college element in it. There will be a lot of fraternities, sororities, so it'll be good for them to meet each other, too. Or they get to see frat brothers across other bands and stuff. That'll be actually really exciting.
And what we want to do, we want to coordinate a directors conference with this every year so that we can kind of keep that as part of it too. So there can maybe eventually be seminars and things that the students can also go to in addition to the festivities of the festival. So we want to expand it in even greater ways. So the mayor wants, like in a few years, he wants this to be a week-long festival. So I think that's a great goal to go for. But right now, the 3 days are going to do us just fine, I think.
Right. So then after that, it will be Sunday. And then Sunday, is anything planned for Sunday morning, or does the competition then start Sunday afternoon?
We will start after people that want to go to services. That's very predominant in our area. Obviously, we're in the middle of the Bible Belt. But so we'll start at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. We'll have probably 2 or 3 exhibition bands there, and then we'll have the larger core style bands competing for the last championship category.
What is planned after that competition is over? Is there like a ceremonial ending?
There probably will be a sort of ceremonial ending around 6 or 7 that evening, and then we will conclude the festival there at that field that day. Yes, sir.
And would it be hopefully inviting all the bands if they're able to stay?
Oh, well, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're in the middle of our funding. While we're talking about this, we're in the middle of our funding model now. And of course, with this being a first-year festival, we hope we can get the band, offer as much financial support to the bands to get them here. But obviously, we're not going to be able to pay for 400-piece band in a hotel for 3 days. But everyone will be invited to that. For every event that goes on through the weekend, it may be that some bands come in, and if they are performing on Saturday, they may come in on Friday and stay that one night, do the parade, do their show, see if they win the championship and get back on the buses. So I don't know how that's going to happen. We'll do everything we can to keep them there all 3 days. But of course, that's going to be challenging in the first year.
For each, you said there'll be 17. You have 17 total. Those will be divided up in those competitions. So you said if between 20, 25 bands, is your idea to at least have like 5 bands?
Yeah,
in each
I want
competition?
5 in each competition category. Although we're not going to limit it to 5, we want at least 5 in each competition category, and then we want about 7 or 8 exhibition bands.
7 or 8 exhibition
Mm-hmm.
of the same, or 7 or 8 total. So the exhibition
That'll
bands,
make up the 23.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the exhibition bands, they will, let's say on Friday night, the
Mm-hmm.
band that still has under 200 wins, they do not want to compete. That's when they will do their exhibition along with the bands of their
no,
size.
not necessarily.
Okay.
Like for instance, if say a band say there's a Division II school and they have 120 members, but they have a playoff game on Saturday. So they say, okay, we want to come, but we can't come until Saturday evening after the playoff game, if they're a couple of states away or something. We say, okay, so they come Saturday evening, and they'll be one of our exhibition bands for Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So we're gonna work with people's schedules so that we can make it as doable as possible. Like for instance, Jacksonville State's coming out of Alabama. They'll be one of our core style competitors on Sunday afternoon. But in all likelihood, they'll have a playoff game on Saturday at home because they're a powerhouse in that division. What will happen with them is they'll probably have their game, then they'll get on their buses in Alabama that afternoon and come here Saturday night and compete Sunday. And see, we know that because of the football competition, that is a playoff weekend, that we're going to have to work with bands to get that done for all of them. So we're prepared for that.
Double Time Entertainment. Our passion is music and promoting HBCU marching bands as well as high school marching bands through high-quality movie videos and photos. We have worked with BET, Yamaha, Ludwig, Honda Motor Company, and been featured on CNN and Lifetime Network's series Bama State Style. We also help and orchestrate Battle of the Bands with marketing and promotions, and also became the official media team for the Queen City Battle of the Bands in Charlotte, North Carolina. Join Double Time Entertainment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and now new on Periscope. Music lovers are noteworthy.
Hello, this is Duncan C. Gray, Director of Bands at West Charlotte High School and proud graduate of Winston-Salem State University. You are chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
All right, everyone, we're back. What I remember most about the third segment is going over the full detail of the event with Bob and seeing how exciting this is going to be. He talked to the mayor, and they want to make it a week-long event, and that would be something that would be really, really interesting. He also talked about not interfering with the Honda, but this could be a good event to take over for the Honda because we're not sure if we're going to have it. And there are some logistic issues with having the event at the end of January, and probably would be better if held during those weeks when bands are handcuffed to what is going on to their football team. They actually can compete for the actual national championship. I think it might work out a little bit better. You also avoid the Christmas holiday and then coming back to school early from the Christmas holiday for practice and to put together a show in January, where a lot of band directors may be ready to move on to concert band in that second semester. A lot of those students at their school would not have marching band on their spring schedules. So having the event there just made things may be a little bit easier having this particular event here in in December, because I think it's a good thing. We still have the Queen City Battle of the Bands, which is like the preseason Hawaii tournament. like they have in college basketball, and we have this to wrap up the year. The only other event that may overlap with this is the Band Directors Convention that goes on in Chicago, and it's held every year. I'm sure with the popularity of the event and the actual event growing, people will adjust their schedules for this. But I think it's something that everyone will definitely get excited around nationally, especially after a couple of them happen and after a couple of bands come out and say, hey, we're national champs, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure other students are want to step in and say, nah, man, we can't let them go out there like that. You know what I mean? So really excited for the upcoming future for the event. In our fourth segment, we'll wrap up the conversation talking about sponsorships and how people can get involved in the event. And we get the feel for how the city of Columbia will host the event and how they feel about the national championships for marching band. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow the blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com.
I think that's a good idea because you don't limit the night only to just that group. So, like you said, if there is a band that's smaller, they have an opportunity to perform for the crowd for the bigger band. You know what I mean?
The different kinds of bands that we will have will be interspersed all weekend. Like the Citadel is in here in South Carolina, they're coming, and they're a regimental and pipe band, like a military band with bagpipes. Really, they can do they don't want to compete, and they can do their exhibition pretty much any day they want. We'll have to arrange that by everyone's schedule. That's how we're working with it.
Okay. Now, how does sponsors go? Do you just open it up to say, hey, this is going to be the event? Do you open it up for people to sponsor the event or maybe get their advertising out there?
Yeah, what we're doing now, we're in the process of that right now, which we're heavily involved in seeking our sponsorships. Obviously, we're going to the city and the county here for a lot of our funding through hospitality tax grants. But we also want sponsors through the music companies. We would of course, Yamaha and some of the music providers, especially in our southeastern area of the country, to come through and to help with sponsorships for us. So we're working on that now to get it to higher level event, I guess you would say. We're going to have sponsors, and we're working through our Chamber of Commerce, acquire business sponsors, and we have sponsorship levels we'll be providing for them and get them notoriety through our festival. There's going to be a lot of businesses that have a great interest in this event being successful, and we believe that those are the ones that will help us monetarily, and in turn we'll be helping them. So I think it's just a win-win for all of us. It really is.
Has there been a thought of changing the city, or does Columbia want to make sure this is the place?
Well, no. In a word, no. We really want to. We want to make Columbia a destination location for this event.
Okay.
When we started talking about it, the mayor was like, I want an event. We're not a huge city. We're a medium-sized city with about 1 million people in our metropolitan area. So we're not tiny, but we're not huge. We're just a medium-sized city. So he said, I want us to create some kind of event that the whole city can wrap its arms around and say, this is ours. This is what we're known for. So that's how, from day one, it was something that the city here would keep and build. And he said, here's my vision. I want Columbia to be to college marching bands what Omaha is to college baseball teams. As in other words, a mecca for college marching bands.
Wow.
And he said, and if we do this right and keep doing it right, it will be that.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely it will. What's really cool about this little town is that this little city is that the people are great here. They tell people where to go and directions. They steer them to things to see in the town, and we have one of the top 10 zoos in the country. People here, a lot of people don't know about that. It's called Riverbank Zoo, but it's fantastic. There's a lot of good things to see here, and our citizens are really wrapping this thing up and getting excited about it, and kind of, I think everybody wants an event that we can kind of claim as their own. So we hope to keep it here always. We really do, and build it into something that we can eventually move over to the large stadium. We have a stadium here that seats about 80,000 people, the local university stadium at the University of South Carolina. So as it grows, there's a venue for it.
It's very similar to the Final Four with the basketball.
Actually, yeah, it really is. It's like that the first year, yeah.
So when people buy tickets, do they buy a ticket for all 3 nights, or do you buy them individually?
They're going to be able to do it for individual days or weekend passes. And I think what we're going to do, the tickets probably will range in the $25 in that range somewhere, 20 to 30, I'm thinking. And, of course, the ones that are from the 10-yard line to the 10-yard line will be a little bit more. What we're going to do is we're going to have tickets that are available for day only, one-day event, and then we're going to have weekend passes that are more economic value.
And then the parade.
There's no charge for the parade. That's a free event. Yeah.
Okay, right. It's those competitions.
Yeah. Now we're thinking about maybe having a large grandstand right in the middle of the parade route, where people can buy tickets to that grandstand if they want a better view of the parade, much like they do at the Rose Parade. So we're thinking about doing that. That has not evolved quite yet, but if there's enough demand for it, we certainly will, in the middle of the parade route, raised up a little higher.
Has there ever been a talk of a mass band type of thing, like where the bands get together?
Actually thought about that, and we were thinking about having, because we have such a range of sizes of bands that are coming. I think that our smallest band is 84 members, and our largest band is 440. They march 440. Right. So, and they're all sizes in between. So what we may do is we may ask some of the smaller bands if they would like to march in mass as like the welcoming band, and put them at the front. But I mean, that's not required, and they certainly don't have to do that. But that we are kicking around that idea too. Yeah.
Okay. Are you inviting everyone? Or are you? I guess if it gets to the point where this becomes popular.
No, we're not. We are still taking applications through our website. If individuals and band directors go to www.marchingchants.com, there's a button there that you can push that says, "How would you like to participate?" And that is an application to the festival. Okay. And so any band director in America can go there if they want to come to this and apply. And like I said, I don't think we're really going to turn down anyone who wants to come. This is a national festival, and it's for everyone. It's for everyone of every size, every band of every size. Just such a great diversity of styles here. And so we're not going to turn anyone down if they want to apply through there.
Well, this is great, man. This actually put a lot in my head. I know when we were talking on it on the podcast, when we first talked about it, I think everyone was interested about how it would be judged. But you said that judging consortium agreed to be a part of this. So that then turned my mind onto like all the logistics and how it's going to be. I thought that it was just going to be a one-day thing, but this is great that it's going to be a whole weekend. So people will fly to Columbia, and they got to stay in a hotel. They got to eat somewhere.
And another reason we did that, Joe, was because the venue we got this year was a little bit smaller than we wanted. I mean, we're going to be able to get about 13,000 people in there. So we had to spread it out over 3 days for the anticipated crowd. So we had to do one division one day, one the next, and one the next. Ideally, I would have loved to have had a 25,000 seat stadium with one huge, large side. We don't have a stadium like that here, so we had to go to the city stadium, which is a multi-use set stadium. It's for baseball and football. We were having to arrange it so that it'll be perfect for this event. But the numbers of tickets will be limited somewhat, so that's why we had to go to 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
well, that's good, though. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
it's going to be better to be full for 3 days than a lot of empty seats in one day. The mayor is just thrilled. The city of Columbia is ready to wrap their arms around this event. We're just so excited that we're finally going to be able to deliver something that college marching band students have deserved for decades. And we just feel like it's been a long time coming, and we're finally going to get it done for that group of students that have worked so hard for so many years. We hope that everyone out there chopping it up on the Marching Band podcast will come to Columbia. Just have a great weekend, the first week in December. You can enjoy all the marching bands and enjoy the championship football games on television and the sports bars. And we're just going to have a great, great weekend. We can't wait.
Is there anything in closing that you would like to say?
I thank you so much for allowing me to be on your program, give us this pub here. We appreciate that. We always say something big is coming, y'all. So get ready. Something big is coming. We hope to see people in Columbia in December. That's all I've got to say.
All right, everyone, we're back. We hope you enjoyed the interview. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll post your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, we'll send out your information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business. What I remember most about the last segment is just about the event, the potential of the event. I think that it will get really popular once one band wins. They will pub that, and they will be able to use that in their recruiting. They'll be able to go out and say, hey, we competed in the national championship last year and won. And then word of mouth, I think, will be good. I'm already trying to imagine if Jackson State and the Sonic Boom of the South won the national championship, how we would use that to our advantage, and the experience that the students would actually have with attending and competing in the event. And thinking about directors now are concentrating on the Honda. Currently, the Honda is really important to us, and I know a lot of directors are concentrating on putting music together and putting shows together over the holiday. Maybe these directors will think about this ahead of time, and we actually change that focus, I believe. Again, we're just speculating because we're not sure, but just really excited we got a hold of Rob to talk about the event, and really excited just to have the event on the radar for all of us band heads. So just another round of applause there for coordinating and creating the national championships for marching band.
Hello, this is Christine Mayo-Katzman, CEO and publisher of Halftime Magazine, and you are chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hello, my name is Kellen J. Christian. I am the director of bands at Oak Haven High School in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm also the assistant director of Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama. I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a 2007 graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. M4, baby, swag, stand up. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
Hello, this is Duncan C. Gray, Director of Bands at West Charlotte High School and proud graduate of Winston-Salem State University. You are chopping it up here on the Marching Podcast Network.
All right, everyone, we've come to the end of our podcast. I have to say, the promos over the instrumentals is probably like my favorite thing in the world. If I could sit here and just do this all day, I mean, I could. Got some really good instrumentals for you guys coming up, but really appreciate, again, your time. Thanks again, and shout out to Robert, aka Bob Lane, and the national champs, national marching champs. Excited about getting this event going and moving along, and really want to support you in all that you do. So thanks for talking to us, and we really appreciate your time. Check out the website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Thanks to you for listening, and remember, the eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. See you next time.